Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Range is hot. Lock and load. It's time for the Gun Rack with your hosts, Joey and Drew.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gun Rack Sonoran Desert Institute School of Firearms Technology's official podcast. I'm Drew Poplin with you here today. It is insane that somehow we are in the month of June. We're halfway through 2024, and I can't believe it. The time has flown by so quick. It's insane to me. I hear that, I used to, growing up, hear that when you get older, the time moves by, the days get longer and the years get shorter. I'm starting to feel it. I don't know if anyone else out there can relate to that feeling, but in any case, glad to have you on the show listening today. I have a special treat in store for you. We have Chris Beller, SVP of Operations and Technology at PVS Studios, located in Jacksonville, Florida. He's joining us on the Gun Rack today to talk about product photography. More specifically, how you can enhance your own photography for, some of you guys that own your own business, have your own FFLs, and want to be promoting your firearms products. This is the episode you need to be listening to. But before we get into that, let's talk about SDI real quick. SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute, is an online school that helps students learn the skills and techniques that they'll need to be successful in the firearms and unmanned technology industries. SDI is accredited by the Distance Education Accrediting Commission, the DEAC, and currently we offer 3 programs in firearms technology. The first being the Associate of Science in Firearms Technology, second being the Certificate in Firearms Technology Gunsmithing, and finally we have the Certificate in Firearms Technology Handgun Specialist program. Now, if you want any information about SDI and how we can kind of help you get started, check out our website. It's www.sdi.edu. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we are chatting with Chris Beller. Chris, how are you doing today, my man?
Andrew, doing pretty good. How you doing?
Can't complain. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day to come onto the podcast and talk with us. I'm really excited for some of the stuff that we have lined up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Now, it's my understanding that the way that this whole thing sort of started was my supervisor, Steve, was at the NSSF conference, and somehow SDI and PVS Studios ended up meeting up there at that conference. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah. Troy Benscoter, our CEO, was at the conference, and I believe him and Steve met, and they were chatting, going back and forth, and then introduced us.
Well, I'm glad that it happened because now we're getting to talk today. And as I mentioned, you guys are based out of Jacksonville, right?
Correct.
Cool. What ultimately was it that you guys decided that Jacksonville was going to be your location? Was that sort of you guys were all sort of from the area, so it made sense, or was that a strategic decision?
Troy, who was one of the founders, was actually from Florida. He was actually up in Chicago, living in Chicago for another business. And then him and Bruce decided they were going to start this company that PVS was a part of. PVS was actually started at the same time as another company. It's kind of a department within that company. So Troy moved back from Chicago to Jacksonville because, Florida is really a business-friendly state. So they figured it would be best to get back into Florida. Plus, like I said, he was in Chicago. So going from the cold Chicago weather down to Jacksonville, I don't think it was a hard sell.
Yeah. Oh, no, we got to be near the coast of Florida. That's awful. Yeah. Well, cool. Now, can you tell us just a little bit about what you do with PVS Studios?
Yeah, so man in many hats, like most of us here. We're a smaller company, so do a little bit of everything. But basically, just overall operations of the company, working with our team to make sure that we're delivering what our clients want, making sure our processes are good, working with the teams to define process improvements and things like that. Because we're basically, in a sense, kind of a photography factory, if you will. We've built ourselves for scale and speed. So with that, you're always looking for ways to become more efficient. A service, you can get two or three things, right? You can get low cost, quality, or speed. Usually you can take two out of the three. Our philosophy is we're trying to deliver all three of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, how did you first get into photography? Was it something that you sort of fell into? Was it something you grew up always having a passion for?
I've always myself personally liked photography. My grandfather, who I was very close with, was a photographer. So, he had a dark room in his house. He had a studio in his basement. So I was always around it. And so, as I got older, when I was little, I forget how old I was. In like elementary school, for Christmas, I got a camera from him. So I always just kind of had a camera. And then as I got older, when digital came out, I got a digital camera, got into it. There was a website online called DP Challenge back at the day. I don't even know if they're still around, but it's where you could go and they give you different challenges every week of different types of photography and things like that. And just really got into that. I did that for a couple of years just to get experience. And yeah, just always kind of had the bug. Never got real far into it from a professional standpoint until I got down here to PVS, but always been involved from photography and videography from my last couple jobs.
So you mentioned you kind of got in with analog before switching over to digital. And obviously, for what you guys do with PVS Studios, I imagine the vast majority of it is going to be digital photography, whether it's a DSLR or mirrorless camera. In your own time, do you ever find time to still do any analog photography?
Analog, no, unfortunately. That's actually one thing that I really wanted to get into is learn like darkroom,
Mm-hmm.
the darkroom process and actually exposing film and developing film and stuff, but never had the opportunity to. So
Yeah.
maybe one of these days when things slow down, I'll go back and see if anybody even knows how to do it anymore
Yeah.
to teach me. But
Well, luckily, I feel like there's been a bit of a renaissance with analog photography. At least I've noticed online. I got into it 3 or 4 years ago, just on my own. And luckily, there's a lot of people just doing blogs online about, hey, if you want to start, here's how you can get into it. Here's some good cameras, stuff like that. And I found the darkroom process, like you were mentioning, it was actually pretty interesting. It was kind of fun just having everything so manual, and it was stress inducing. Like my anxiety rose like crazy because I'm trying to block out all the light I can and just do it in my little apartment bathroom. I think I ended up actually getting some poster board, like some of that foam poster board, and making just a little, and then just putting a towel over and doing the best I could. It's one of those moments. I'm glad no one walked into the house because I'm sure it would have looked really weird. Um, yeah, so can you talk a little bit about how you ended up at PVS Studios?
yeah, yeah. Actually, I was running operations at a company called Kessler Crane up in Indiana. And we had started kind of a side project where we made photo robot equipment, it's called AutoCam 360. So the idea was, automate the capture 360 photography. So we were building robots. And PVS back in 2019 became a client of ours. They bought one of our robots for their studio down here. Met Bruce, one of the founders, and the team here. Fast forward to towards the end of 2019, we started talking internally at Kessler that, we were trying to basically do a startup at the same time of trying to keep our regular business going. And it was really pulling resources away from Kessler, trying to focus on AutoCam. And we kind of made the decision that it probably wasn't the best thing to keep moving forward with that internally at Kessler. So Bruce and I had some conversations, and they wanted to bring some more control within their studio of have their own equipment. So they actually acquired the AutoCam brand. And as part of that, I came down to run AutoCam. So that's how I got down here. And then, once we got down here and we started, working on things, what we really found was, what people need is really somebody to help them with the photography more so than just needing equipment. So we found, people would contact and say, "Hey, I want a robot 'cause I want to do this." And you start talking to the client. It's like, "Well, what are you trying to achieve?" And you talk about it, and it's like, you know what? We've got this studio here for a fraction of the cost of your investment and overhead of having equipment. We can probably do that for you. And so, we found that we had to put a lot more focus on the photography. So we kind of backburnered the AutoCam business. And that's when I really started getting involved with the PVS day-to-day business in the studio. So they acquired the business in April of 2020. Then I moved down to Florida from northern Indiana. Hence, I understand where Troy came from when he was in Chicago because I hated the cold up in Indiana. But I came down in February of 21. So I've been down here since then.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I was going to make a snarky comment about what a year to acquire business, 2020. But now that I think of it, that's actually pretty smart, especially because a lot of what you guys are doing is for online companies, Amazon products, eBay, stuff like that. What better time than when there's a pandemic and people are not really going out to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, where the pandemic was damaging for a lot of companies, for us, it was a great time in a sense because you had a lot of businesses that were mainly brick and mortar and never really had an online presence, realized when the pandemic hit that I have to be online. And to be online, I have to have good images of my products so that people can still see what they're trying to buy. And so, yeah, there was a huge push from a lot of companies to improve their online presence when the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's evolved from there, because as consumers, we were used to going out and going to the store. And then you found out that, I can just sit on my phone, I'm watching TV, order whatever I want, and it'll just show up on my doorstep tomorrow. And I think people got used to the convenience of that. And we've been seeing it just grow and grow.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Now, Troy, who you mentioned before, who is the CEO of PVS Studios, he mentioned that you are also a firearms enthusiast, correct?
I
All
am.
right, great. So, how did you first get into firearms? You said you were from Indiana, right?
Yep.
Was
Yes.
that something that was like it was kind of part of the culture there, or?
Oh, absolutely. My dad was always into firearms. I mean, he was kind of a collector, so we had guns on the walls everywhere. We lived on a farm, so we'd go back in the back and he'd take us back target practice and stuff all the time when we were kids. So it was just something I was always around, always enjoyed. I mean, I think at 16 years old, I was in the NRA, So yeah. And then as I got older in high school, our high school was in the middle of the cornfield. Everybody had pickup trucks in the parking lot with their rifle in their back window, So for us, it was just a way of life. I mean, everybody had firearms. You're always hunting or shooting and doing something. So
For sure. Now, I got a bit of a fun question for you before we get back to business. Do you have a personal favorite firearm at this moment?
So I really like my Glock 43X. That's my personal
Mm,
carry. I mean, it's nice. I mean, the form factor is really, I mean, it's easy to conceal, but it doesn't feel tiny in my hands. We're actually doing a project for one of our clients' nightstick, and they make different kinds of optic lights and stuff for for different handguns. And we got the Springfield Armory Hellcat in
ooh,
for one of
okay.
their lights. And I saw that. I was like, I really like that. So haven't got one yet, but I definitely need to get out to the range and try it out because
For sure.
it looked and felt just really nice.
Yeah, the Hellcat's pretty solid little firearm for sure. Now, I mentioned you guys doing work for Amazon, eBay, some pretty big online vendors, but then you also mentioned that you did something for Nightstick just now. So, can you talk a little bit about the stuff that companies are looking for in the photos that you produce for them? And is there a difference between what some of the larger companies are looking for and maybe what some of the smaller companies are looking for?
I mean, it all kind of varies by kind of product category on what they're looking for. But the main thing is just quality imagery that gives the client the ability to basically have a virtual interaction with that product online. We're all used to going in the store, picking it up, holding our hands, looking at it, and just really understanding what it is that we're getting ready to buy. And then as we've moved to, e-commerce and everything being online, it's like our customers still want to have that same experience in a virtual space, if you will. So it's really that, finding ways to really showcase that product so that the customer can see what they're going to purchase.
I noticed on the PVS Studios website, I noticed you guys had utilized or have in the past, you've utilized stuff like stop motion photography, 360-degree photography. Like, what are your favorite techniques to use right now? And what do you think is one that's new or coming down the pipeline that maybe people should be aware of?
You know, CGI is really starting and it's outside of regular photography. So I think there's two things that we're seeing a lot of. One things that we like that we've been doing are like stop motion animations, which makes it really, fun ways to do like unboxings or, we do a lot of them for Nightstick, the client that I mentioned, because they like to show kind of how their products go onto the firearm. So we can just in an animation, we can, show how all the pieces go together. And it's a visual, way for a customer to see that. And then with the 360 spins, interactive spins where you can drag that product and, look at all different sides of it, that gives you that interaction that we were talking about, right? Where you're kind of holding it in your hands. And now we're starting to get into the AR and VR. And that's where we're getting into CGI a little bit more because, they want to make that virtual shelf space now to where, not so much in the firearm space, but we do furniture clients and we've got clients that are in HVAC where a pool table manufacturer that we're working with right now, they want to be able to take and you can scan a barcode on your phone and you can basically place that pool table right in your room so you can see how it's going to fit. So AR is really starting to take off. I mean, you're seeing it more on Amazon and a lot of the furniture sites. So we're seeing a lot more interest in stuff like that. And a lot of that starts with photography too. When we do some of our CGI work is we capture the photography so they have that. Then we can use that photography to build the models and create the virtual model as well. So they both kind of tie together.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Like, what's the process going behind that? I didn't know if it was something where you guys got the schematics and then somehow built it in, but
yeah, multiple ways. I mean, we can do it from, CAD files, CAD models, even just 2D prints that have the dimensions, and then, a couple of reference images to see what the product looks like. And then the artist will basically create it. So
imagine telling someone 10 years ago, like these possibilities.
I know it's amazing. And with AI now, I mean, it's kind of a love-hate with AI, but as a tool to help, AI is becoming, I think, very helpful from a creative's perspective because you have clients that want to have kind of a lifestyle type photograph of their product in a lifestyle environment. Well, in the past, the only way to do that was to basically go out and have a remote shoot somewhere. Whereas now, we do a lot of what we call lifestyle composites, where we can take pictures of the product and then either using stock images, we can basically Photoshop it in it so it looks like it was taken in the environment, or using generative AI, you can say, all right, I need this scene. And AI will create the scene around the product. Mm-hmm. So it gives us as creatives, more flexibility to give our clients a solution for what they're looking for, because it seems like, everybody's on kind of a tight budget. It may not be exactly the same as going out to the range or out in the woods or something like that, but it still gives them a pretty good, lifestyle representation for a fraction of the cost of doing an on-site shoot.
Gotcha. Cool deal. Yeah. I hadn't even thought about it from that angle, but that totally makes sense. So I'm going to hit you with a couple rapid fire ones. Just bear with me. In your opinion, what is most important for someone doing product photography? Is it the camera body? Is it the lens, or is it the lighting setup?
My personal opinion is, while the camera and the lens is important, because obviously you want the image to be high quality in regards to like resolution and things like that. Honestly, I think lighting is probably your most important because you can have a quality image from a resolution standpoint, but if your lighting sucks, it's really going to make your product look bad. And just how lighting is important, we have a client we were working with where they've got stippling on their grip of their stock. And we lit it first from basically kind of a flat lighting to, get the entire product lit. And you looked at it and it's like, you really couldn't see the stippling because it was kind of blended in because you were lighting from the front. So, we added a light that came across it and brushed across it, which created little shadows, which then makes that stippling pop out. So it just shows how just a slight lighting adjustment made a significant difference in the way the image looked. So that's why I think, lighting is really the most critical, and that comes from, my previous job was we made motion control and camera support equipment for the video industry. So working with filmmakers and stuff like that, you learn that lighting on a set is probably the most critical when it comes to, shooting a scene. So, I mean, you can see that difference. You look at soap operas and then you look at like a feature film, just the lighting differences. I mean, one you can tell is a soap opera just by looking at the lighting, and the other is just high quality cinematic look.
I'm sure you've probably seen something like this before, but I distinctly recall there was a diagram I saw a couple of years ago about they just had the same person staying in the same place, same composition of the shot, and they just changed the lighting around them. And the way it changed the mood and tone, like for each frame, it was incredible. So I think you're right on that. I think that's where a lot of the artistry kind of comes into play. All right. Well, I'm not going to get hung up too much on lighting, because we could talk for a while about that. Mirrorless versus DSLRs.
I tell you what I've seen with some of the new mirrorless cameras is just amazing. I have some friends that are really they're Sony ambassadors, and seeing the images that are coming out of those cameras is just amazing. And I know we actually have some of the Canon mirrorless here that we've been working with, and very, very nice. As opposed one over the other, I mean, I think it's kind of matter of preference, but both are really good. But what I'm seeing out of these mirrorless cameras is pretty amazing stuff.
Well, and so do you guys primarily use Canon?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I wanted to ask. I'm a Sony guy myself, so yeah.
I always shot Nikon too, myself personally.
Okay. Yeah. So in a similar vein, what is more important in your opinion? The actual photography, or like the actual photograph that someone captures, or is it one's skill as a photo editor?
I think it's always important to try to capture it right the first time, but with digital now, it's nice to have the flexibility of being able to, quote unquote, fix it in post. But yeah, I mean, like we're talking about lighting, right? You can't fix lighting in post, so you kind of have to get it right up front. So I still think it's probably most important to be able to capture it in photography correctly, or do as much as you can. I mean, there's some complex setups that we've done for clients before where it has to be kind of finished in post, but you capture as much as you can up front and then save the final bit for post.
Well, speaking of editing, what do you guys recommend if there's a student here that's like getting into his own product or his or her own product photography? What kind of file would you recommend them saving their stuff in? What's going to achieve the best quality, and then what's going to be the most versatile as far as being able to use it on different digital platforms?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, we do a lot that's just JPEG and like transparent PNGs, but there's some client, a lot of it is driven by the client and what they need, right? So some clients want to have actual saved clipping paths. So in something like that, we might save it in a PSD format with layers so they can adjust it, or like a layered TIFF file, so where you can actually keep that path in there. But from a quality standpoint, we usually go just high resolution JPEG or transparent PNG for, I would say, probably 95% of our clients. We have some that their preference are TIFF files, because say they're going to be doing like a large banner printing, so they want something as high resolution as possible. But if you're mainly going to be on delivering onto the web, for like websites, PNG and JPEG are I think good enough. Keeps the sizes smaller, so load times are down, and the quality with cameras nowadays too are really, really nice. So
Sure. Cool. Now, we have a wide variety of students at SDI, and as such, there's a wide variety of financial backgrounds. Now, would you be kind enough to attempt a breakdown of maybe some of the best setups for people that maybe have a low budget, maybe things they could add on if they had just a medium budget, and maybe some high-end items if they had a large one?
yeah, I mean, really it starts with just a camera that you can afford, right? A camera and a couple of decent lenses. The nice thing was even a used like Canon 5D Mark III still is pretty good quality, and you can get them for next to nothing now. Or Sony, if you go and, if you prefer Sony, you can go the Sony route too. But really, I mean, you start with a decent camera, and a couple lights. And LED lights, I mean, you can go name brand and it can get really expensive. But if you're just starting out and there's cheap lights that you can you find on Amazon that it allows you to light the product. So and as you get into the higher end, depending on what you want to do, I mean, honestly, if you want to do a 360 spin, you can do it with a little Lazy Susan. I mean, it's a little bit more manual, but when you're doing a 360 spin, all it really is 24 images or however many frames you want in that 360. So you're capturing still, just still images, and then they're all put together after the fact. So I mean, we've actually done it here before, is you can kind of mark off your different points and take a picture, turn your Lazy Susan a little bit, take a picture, so there's ways to do it on a budget. And then you can move up to motorized turntables and things like that. Or you can go in, go to the high end where you're getting robots that will control the spin of the product, the angle of the camera, where you can programs that say, I want to do a 360 spin and I want to do it at 3 different levels. You basically program those in, hit a button, and that robot just goes. And then once it's all done, you have all your images. So again, it comes down to really just making sure that you're capturing the image in a good way with good lighting, and you can accomplish that at a low budget. You're looking at equipment, the higher end equipment like the robots. That's more when you're doing volume. Like with us, we're running through thousands of products a month, so we need that automation so that we can get through it. But if you're not operating at that level, you can do it on a budget.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's encouraging to hear. I have seen people do some crazy stuff making, in particular with lights. I've seen people go to Lowe's and make a whole lighting setup, for under $50 before. Obviously, being able to get some professional lights, that is the goal. But just for, for the students, to definitely want to encourage you. You could start today taking good photos of your products.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I first started messing around with photography at home, I was using those little aluminum dome lights, work lights that you got from, like I said, Home Depot, Lowe's, something like that. Yeah, I mean, it works. It lights the product. So yeah, a budget. You can do it on the cheap.
I've asked you about lighting. I've asked you about cameras. I suppose I need to ask you a question about lenses. I'm assuming you guys prefer prime lenses over zoom lenses.
You know what's funny? We don't actually.
Really?
We actually shoot with, I think it's 80 to 300.
Okay.
Because it gives us just that much range to move without having to actually move the camera around. So, obviously with the prime lenses, you're stuck at that focal length. So to get in and out, you kind of have to move the camera. We like the flexibility of being able to, adjust it. So it kind of comes down to preference. In our case, it works in our situation better for us to use a zoom lens.
Gotcha.
Just more flexibility.
That is interesting. I guess that would make sense because you guys have, you're in a controlled environment most of the time, so
Mhm.
you're able to have control over the lighting and stuff. So, okay, cool deal.
Threw
Well,
you a curveball, didn't I?
I say, no, I'm glad that you swerved when I swooved. Now, what would you say your favorite part of your job is?
Honestly, it's interacting with the clients and understanding what their needs are and developing a solution for those needs. Because a lot of times, what we notice is the client will come and say, "Hey, I want this," but when you talk with them, that's not really what they want. Like they come in and say, "I want a 360 spin of all of my products." It's like, well, your products really don't need a spin. There's not a value add to having that. So there's more cost for the client because we're taking more images, which mean more images need to be edited. You have to have a plug-in to view the 360 spin.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, what's your consumer going to get out of that spin? So say you have a kit of, we were just working for an HVAC client where you've got your main component and you've got all the little accessories to go with it. And they wanted a 360 spin of all of those components laid out. The problem is, I don't see a real value for it, from a client's perspective. So that gives us an opportunity to go to a client and say, you know what, I think this image and this image will give you what you need to give your clients or your customers the image set that they need to be able to know what they're purchasing and purchase your product. And so we're able to tell the client, hey, instead of spending this much, now you can spend this much. And we're
Hmm.
helping them with their budget. I like the problem solving aspect of that. That's what I enjoy.
Gotcha. Now, is there a project that you've worked on with PVS that you've been maybe most proud of?
For me personally, there hasn't really been one project per se. The pride that I see is just in our team.
Hmm.
We're constantly challenged by our clients, whether it's one of our huge fashion clients that comes in and says, "Oh, we just got a last minute notification and we've got 100 products that we need to get imaged really quick because we have to send them down to Miami for a on model photo shoot." And it's watching our team that we've built come together and figure out, all right, I still have all these clients I have to take care of, but now I have to figure out how to accommodate this client to meet their goals and expectations. So I'm proud of is the culture and the team that we've been building here at PVS, and everybody kind of being the kind of like-minded in the sense of figuring out what we need to do to make sure the client's taken care of. That's what I'm proud of.
All right, cool deal. Now, before I let you go, because I don't want to keep you from all the busy work you guys have, real quick, if there's any other advice you want to bestow upon our listeners, and of course, give you opportunity to talk a little bit about PVS Studios, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. The biggest thing I would say is whether you're shooting for yourself or internally for your company or for a client, I think the most important thing is to actually listen to your client. I think we all hear our clients, but not everybody actually listens to their client to really understand what they're trying to do so that you can figure out, how to deliver what they really need. So that's probably my number one thing is really listen. But yeah, as far as PVS Studios, we're just a company that's been built around keeping costs down, efficiency up, turnaround up, making quick turnaround so that we can take care of our clients in the industry. And the nice thing that I enjoy is that we're in all kinds of industries here. So it makes it really fun because we get a whole variety of products. But obviously, I've got more excited as we've got more and more involved in the firearm space, just of
Mhm.
having the connection to it and just seeing what the different companies in the industry are doing. It's an amazing time. It really is. We're seeing a lot of growth in that space from our company perspective, but just working with, like the NSSF and NASGW, working with these organizations and seeing what they're trying to do for the industry has been a lot of fun. So, and then, yeah. And if anyone wants to know anything about us, we're at pvsstudios.com.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much, Chris, for coming on to the show. Definitely appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime you like. And yeah, take care. Hope you do well.
You too. Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
All right. And once again, we want to thank Chris for coming on to the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure. And just a reminder, if you guys want to check out PVS Studios, definitely encourage you to do that. It is pvsstudios.com. Should be very easy for you guys to remember. Until next time, that has been the Gun Rack. Have fun, stay safe, and we will see you at the range.
Sonoran Desert Institute is an online school accredited by the DEAC. It is headquartered at 1555 West University Drive in Tempe, Arizona. For more information about how you can craft your firearms future, visit sdi.edu.